Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, this is my workshop, and if you follow me you'll know that I'm right in the middle of another amazing Armortek build. It is the 1:6 scale Land Rover Series 1 and I am thoroughly enjoying it. I hope if you follow me you're enjoying the experience with me. When we left off last time I was in the, I finished the detailing on the bulkhead and in particular the dashboard, and this was achieved with a very small amount of money. And just leftover bits and bobs that I have in my box that I call my bits and bobs box, and just a bit of painting. And it just goes to show that the reason why I absolutely love Armortek is they build the kits and they put this amazing engineering and design into it, but they also give the builder the opportunity to make it their own. So every one of these are going to be unique to you, the builder. And if this has inspired you, if you're building one of these and it's inspired you to do something similar, that's exactly what I hope to achieve. So today's session is going to be about getting the bulkhead, this bulkhead, onto the chassis. Then we're going to start looking at the radiator enclosure and the fenders, but I've got some ideas on the fenders I'll share with you. And there's quite a lot of work in this because it's mainly, there's a lot of cleaning, prepping and priming and painting, if you like, ahead, because each component needs to be prepped and painted ahead of it being installed onto the chassis. So I'm going to hope to achieve all of that today. But ahead of that, I just wanted to apologise. I've lost my voice, and the reason for that is I spent, at the time of filming this weekend, I spent 3 amazing days helping my 2 sons at NXT Collectibles at the London MCM Comic Con, and it was brilliant. I had so much fun. I met hundreds of their customers, and I'm so proud to see the connection they have and the support they have from their customer base. They picked up a huge amount of new customers. I saw people win incredible prizes. I saw people reduced to tears of joy because they won something incredible for a very small amount of money. And to watch that happen in front of them and watch my 2 boys made me super proud. So I'm going to hand over to Ben and Tom now because they have a message for you about some incredible prizes that have just been released. And I'm going to let them tell you all about it because I'm rubbish at it. So I'm going to send you over to Ben and Tom. Over to you, lads.
Thanks, Dad. And now a special short piece from us, NXT Collectibles, the UK's first pop culture online raffles. My name's Ben.
I'm Tom.
And we are giving you an amazing opportunity to win this amazing Spider-Man #1 from 1963, worth over £15,000 for only £4.99. You can enter wherever you are around the world to win this very comic.
The best thing is, we don't just raffle off comics. We focus on high-end collectibles, like what you see behind me and in my hand. We have signed Funko Pops, signed helmets, Pokemon, and even Lego.
So if you fancy joining our amazing community from all over the world and winning incredible prizes just like these, head online to our website at www.nextwincollectibles.co.uk and maybe you could be our next winner. Back to you, Dad.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Tom. Wow. That amazing Spider-Man, that is the holy grail of comics. To imagine owning that and owning it by a small ticket price. And that Rocky montage, that boot, I wanted to buy that, but I wasn't allowed, as it's a prize. I understand there's only one, that's one or 2. I think Sylvester Stallone's got the other one, the right boot. This is the left boot. I mean, what a thing to have in the man cave, right? So look, if you can, if it's something you'd like to look at, please check out their website. And if you're interested and you want to have a little punt, make sure you use that unique discount code for my channel, because you'll make some decent savings on it. And I wish you luck if you do enter one of their amazing raffles. So anyway, on to the build. So today is all about getting this built. This is the radiator enclosure here. And as well as that, I want to go on and do the fenders, which is the next stage. Now, in terms of parts, there's not many parts. However, there's a lot of prepping to do because all of these things need to be painted ahead of putting onto the chassis. So I'm gonna, do a lot. Be some cleaning to be done. There's some prepping to do, and then some painting to do before I put them on. I will put the bulkhead on first, so we'll do that first, and then all these other parts need to be assembled, painted. This is the radiator itself, a little block like that, really nice, sturdy piece of aluminium, and some work to do there. And then I'm going to go on and do the fenders. which are these things here, beautifully made, folded. But there's a bit of work to be done to these, because it's been TIG welded on the inside of here, and I just want to fill, there's some gaps. I'm not sure you can pick that up in the camera. I want to fill those gaps so they don't show up when it's painted. And also I was looking at the skin, if you like, of the fender. Now on the real size and most vehicles, this part is folded, there's a crease, and folded back to give this some strength and some rigidity. Now I just think that needs to be done here. Now I've got an idea for that, and I'll share that with you soon. So I'm actually going to put or mimic the fold around this and all the other 3 arches, all 4 arches, but I'll do the 2 front fenders to start with. So what I'll do now is I'll reposition the camera and we'll get cracking. Right, so time for the bulkhead. Now when I was painting the bulkhead, I also painted the fixings the same colour, just so I can get the heads painted. But what I'm going to do now, I've just checked these 2 holes here, because this has been painted. Yeah, I just want to make sure that these fixings go in okay, there's no issues with them, in case I have to clean up the thread. That's fine, that hole there. I can see there's some damage on the chassis, but I'll touch all that up. Inevitably, when you've painted this and then you're still working on it and doing quite a lot of work, you will always do some damage, but it's only light surface damage, and that will get sorted out very easily. So this just simply slides over the gearbox, and then that just sits on there like that. It can only go in one position, and now we can hopefully pick up the holes behind. I'm just going to go in hand tight initially, and that seems to be going in really well. As I said before, I really love I love this kit. I absolutely love this kit. I'm having so much fun with it, and you know, got so many ideas for mods on it, which I will share with you. I want to do something with the number plate, for instance. I'm going to do something with the mud guards, and well, what's that doing? That's struggling a little bit. That's okay now. That's going in now. So I'm just going to tighten these up by hand initially, and then we'll drive them in with my hex tool. All of a sudden, the bulkhead going on has started to look like it's coming to shape. Actually, I might have to go and get one of my angled ones. Bear with me. So look, is this the right size? Yes, it is. Great tool, this. Absolutely brilliant tool. I don't want to damage the paint really if I can help it, but if I do, it's not the end of the world. I've got no thread locker on these because it's aluminium. It's going in and it's biting beautifully. I don't think I'm going to need to do that. Just get them in as tight as possible. I don't think they're ever going to come out of there. The final 2. Nice and tight. Thank you for your comments, by the way, on the colour. I think for the most part it's gained a lot of support, and a special shout out to Martin and his brother, because his dad actually used to drive one of these. Martin's one of my long-time followers. He and I have a lot of communication, a lot of fun exchanging comments. And he's going to send me some photographs of his dad's one. So that's the bulkhead on. Lovely. Now the next thing I'm going to do is this radiator box here, because this is going to have to be painted black. The little radiator cap just sits in there, and that just gets Loctited in there, and I'll paint that black, and I'll probably do some dry brushing on it. And then we have this mesh that goes over this, and I'm not sure if you can see, but there's 4 small holes, and I understand that these 4 holes will eventually, or whichever orientation, I don't know which it is, but there's 4 holes in this radiator enclosure which then go through to that. So what we have to do is make sure that when we and they ask you to trim and Loctite this, but there's not a lot of trimming to do to this little mesh. But what you do need to make sure is you don't block the holes when you glue this on. So when you put this on here, make sure that I'm just going to snip these so that the holes are clear. Stick that down, stick that in there, let it go off, get it primed, get it painted black. So just push the main chassis out of the way for now. And with this, I'm just going to use my snips, but before I do that, I'm just going to mark where I want it to be trimmed. So there's a hole there, so I'm going to have to trim that. Trim that. Yeah, that one. And this. So hopefully I can do this with my normal wire cutters. Let's just pop that back on there. Just going to make sure I just trim just enough to make room for the screw to go in. And that's that one. Probably just take the corner out of that. Yeah, my voice is gone. Over the weekend at the MCM, I must have talked to 300-400 people, and every one of those people were lovely. It's an interesting. I'm not sure if you guys have ever been to a Comic-Con, but if you have, let me know in the comments. But it's the first one I've ever done like that, and I loved it. My wife came down, grandkids came down, met us at the stand, and we had a great couple of, well, we did it Friday, Saturday and Sunday. This is a bank holiday Monday in the UK, and now I'm just recouping at home, having lost my voice. So I'm just checking that, make sure that, let's just check I got that right. Yeah, we go, that's it there. And the only thing I need to do now, just make sure I can get it in all directions. I can see I just need to do a little bit more trimming. Excuse me guys, sorry. Actually that was it. That's it, that's the white. But I do need to trim this corner a little bit more. Now I'm going to use my B7000 glue on this, because it's got some flexibility to it. And it goes off relatively quickly. Just making sure that's nice and flat. And what we'll do is I'll get some weight. Once I've glued it, I'll get some weight. In fact, I might actually put that in the vise. So what I'll do is I'm going to put it in between two. What we're going to do is glue it and then put it in between two plates and then put it in my vise and then it's set, and then we can go and paint it. So let's firstly do this. I will Loctite or super glue that in. Pop a bit of glue in there. Pop that in there. I should have checked it if it went in there first, shouldn't I, really? As I said, I'm going to use the B7000 glue for this. And this mesh goes on the side where the 4 holes are. So it gets bonded to this side, not that side. That's just the inside of the Land Rover. So let's just get that glue. Just make sure I get the right orientation, and that is, so make sure that's fine. Now I'm just going to basically apply the glue to the back of the block, spin that. The good thing with this glue is you can wipe off the excess. I want to make sure it's in contact with pretty much the whole of the back of the mesh. Pop that in there. That goes away. And now turn this back round, flip this back over. Now I have, as I always do, I always put on, I have got barrier cream on my hands, so no danger of the glue affecting my hands, easily washed off. Now I'm going to put this plate on here, like so, and the other plate on the other side. I'm going to make sure I've got that positioned. It does slide around because this glue takes a little while to go off. So I'm going to put that in my vise and make sure it's nice and flat, and then once it's set we can get it primed and painted. Right, while we're waiting for the glue to dry, I thought I'd tackle the top of the radiator housing. So this is this main part here. This is the bit I'm going to build here. The only thing I'm going to install on this are the two little drop bars and the headlight enclosures themselves, because this is going to have to be painted ahead of going on to the Land Rover itself. So very first thing we'll do is just orientate this the way I think it should be, and I think this angle should be located in that position according to the instructions. It doesn't tell you, but it suggests. It doesn't show you the underside of this, but it does suggest it. I'm going to pop a fixing through there, hold it from behind, just put a little bit of thread locker on that. Just spin the nut on, spin that round so it's in the right orientation. Hold the nut and then using my hex tool just fix that into position. But that looks like it's got an angle on it. Don't know if you can see that on the camera. This looks like it's angled towards this direction, so that might need to be pushed over. Let's have a look and see what happens when I put this one on. So just checking the orientation again, and that is correct. So bracket on, fixing, let's put the fixing through first, then the bracket, a little bit of thread locker, get that nut, and this nut doesn't want to go on, so I'm just going to hold that there and try and drive the fixing through the nut. That's the way to do it. Just rotate that around. Again, I am using barrier cream on my hands, so all of this stuff that's getting on my hands I'm not bothered about. Just want to rotate, slacken off a little bit. Yeah, I can see, I don't know if it comes out on the camera, there's a bit of an angle to these. Now this sits in this position here. Crudely, something like that, and these support these lights here, so I want to make sure that they are central. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it looks to me that they I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll put the headlights on, and then if they look a bit odd I might have to try and bend these into position so that they're central. Again, it just might be me overthinking everything. So let's just give that one last tighten up. These are going to be fiddly. There's a little M2 hex fixing required for those. So these get bolted in, so we'll get the right orientation. That's the right orientation. These get bolted in from the back of that. So this little hex screw goes through that. Then that is super fiddly. Well, anyway, let's get this started. So I'll keep taking the target part outside of the camera reach. So that is passed through the front of that. I'm going to hold that in place for now, and then try and get that into this tiny little hole. And that is going to prove to be really tricky. Right, so let's start again. I could just not film this and just say it was so easy, but I think it's important that you understand some of the difficulties that you have in this building these models. So that feels like it's located in the hole. Now I've got the right socket, but I haven't put an arm on it because I don't want to put too much pressure on this. No, that's a good. All right, take 3. Mustn't forget, put the right orientation on. Perhaps I should have put these onto the bracket before I put the bracket onto this, but maybe that's what I should have done. Lessons learned. Again, when the camera's on, everything seems to be really fiddly. Talk amongst yourselves, please. Is that in there? Yeah. Nope. Oh dear. Right. 3rd time lucky. Let's see. I know that this goes in here. I know it does. I've done it. Did it ahead of filming.
One eternity later.
Right, so back to doing this again. I've just tested these holes, and they do screw in beautifully, but as soon as you enter into the realms of putting them into the onto the bracket, everything becomes a little bit complicated. So I'm going to try this again on camera, and if it doesn't work, I will turn the camera off, and I think that's going to go in now. Here we go. That's going in now. So I've got the socket tool, but without the handle. I'm just going to use that to wind that in very gently. Haven't put any thread locker on this just yet, but that is gone in. I think that's going to have to be glued in, you know. I'm going to put a dab of glue on that. Yeah, I think a little dab of glue wouldn't go amiss on that. Just doesn't feel right. Got to just suspend it like that. It's in as tight as it's going to go. I just think that the angle and everything else just doesn't work very well. So I'm going to, I'll put a bit of glue on that as well. So let's go and see if we can get this one in. Same deal as before. Pass it through the back. Now, see if I can actually just wind that on. Okay, that's in. These small fixings are super fiddly, and you've got to be so careful because you can damage the thread, and then if you haven't got spare fixings, that's going to be awkward. So same issue. Slacken that off a bit. These must be dropped into position so that they down here. That needs to come off a bit because they've got to be 90 degrees. They need to be 90 degrees off this. I think that would make sense. So this is definitely going to need some glue. So that effectively is it. Fiddly as anything. I'm not going to put the glass lenses on because I want to get all this painted. I'm going to put a dab of glue on this now to stop that from rotating out and doing something I don't want it to do. Quite a generous dab of glue. Position that where I want it. Position that where I want it. Leave that to go off, and then we'll get on to the next part. Okay, so glue's gone off on that. Glue's also gone off on the radiator, but I'm going to do this bit first. Now, just trying to work out the sequence of the build of this. And this I think I can put together now, because it does say this is the other part of the radiator enclosure which this bolts onto, but it does say do not put this onto this piece just yet, because you've got 4 holes through here which then you put fixings into the radiator, so that will go to one side anyway. But I think that I can put this on here now, so I'm keen to do this at this stage so I can see if these headlights are in fact aligned as they should do. So I'm just going to clamp this like that just for now and line up the fixing holes just to see. And it's actually not that bad. That's pretty good. So hopefully I don't need to do too much bending, but I'm going to fix this on anyway, and then we'll I'll make the decision once it's all fixed into place. I'm going to go and get those fixings and I'll be straight back. Right, so I've got the fixings. These are tiny little M2 countersunk fixings. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, they're tiny. Now you need to make sure you've got the right size tool, and I just so happen to have to do this, because you do not want to round this off here, because that will be a nightmare to get the fixing out. And you've got this corresponding little nuts here as well. So this gets positioned on the back of this. So why don't we load up our screw first onto my little hex driver, put a dab of thread locker on this, pop that through the hole there, sort of holding that if I can there, offer this up, there we go, let's pop through. Just going to put a clamp on that, then try with my big old sausage fingers to position a nut on the back of that, and that's gone in nice. I'm not going to over tighten that. It's so easy to damage the head of this screw. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it up from the back with my little socket there as well. Just don't over tighten these, or try and over tighten them, because what will do is you'll just round off the head, and then the fixing is damaged. Okay, hold that. Sorry, these are such small fixings and my hands are in the way. That's that. So that's on there now. So I'm just going to see if I can I can't get my socket in there, so I'm going to hold these with the, tell you what I'm going to do. These little vices are amazing, because you can just use it to prop your work while you're working, like that. Just going to offer that into again. I can see if I can get the socket on the back of that. No, it just won't go. Hold that. Just give that a little bit of a tighten. That's brilliant. Again. That's it. So that's that. Now, let's have a look at the alignment. Not bad. Not bad at all. I think I need to bend, because these lights need to be 90 degrees. And I can see that this one here needs to be pushed back a bit, just bent slightly. Just bent back. So I'll do that. And then I'm going to go and check the vise to make sure the radiator is now set. And then it's time to prime and paint. Right, so that's worked beautifully. I've got another use for these on this Land Rover, which I'll talk about in another video. So that's on there now, really flat, nice, attached. So that's ready for painting. So what I'm going to do is, I won't film painting this. I'm going to get some bits painted, and while I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm going to start working on the fenders and talk you through what the plan is for this. So this is going to be painted, primed and painted black. This will be in the REF blue. So at the moment it's not got its lenses on. I won't put those on obviously until it's painted, and then I've got to work out how I'm going to get the lights in here threaded through the bulkhead and everything else, which is another challenge, but that won't be today. I'm really hoping that I can get the fenders and this and the radiator installed today, because that would be a big move forward on the build. So I'll go and do that, and then I'll be straight back with the fenders. Right, so while I'm waiting for the primer to dry, I just want to go on to talk about these fenders. As I said earlier, this is the outer skin of the fender, which is, you know, lovely, no problem at all, and these have been beautifully made and folded. Regardless of what I'm going to do with the wheel arch, there is a line down here. You see that it's been, where it's been TIG welded, obviously these were two pieces originally, it just needs to be filled, because when that's primed and painted, I don't want to, you may not see that with the bonnet on, but I don't want to risk it, so I'm just going to fill that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply a return on this, and what I used to do the other fender was a piece of balsa wood. This is 3.5mm wide balsa wood and by 1mm thick. I've got this stuff lying around in my garage because I used to do a lot of other modelling, static models and dioramas, and I'm just going to fold or roll this around and glue it to the edge of this. But you can't just push this in because it will snap. Although it's fairly flexible, you need to wet it, and you'll end up with a result like so. So this is applied to the wheel arch, and now if you were to put those up against each other, you can see the thickness, and I just think that this looks so much better as a, you know, as a return on there, and the wheel arch I think would really require that. So, and then I'll do, all I've done then is I've just I've glued it into position. When the glue went off, I then puttied and filled, and I supported it all the way around the back of here, and then filled it at the front, and then sanded it down, and it's really soft and ready to paint now. I still got to do the filler on the edge of this, but I'll do that when I'm doing the other one. So let's get on and show you how I'm going to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is, with this balsa wood, I'm going to get some kitchen towel, and I'm just going to rub this through a few times, because I need this to be a little bit wet to help it with its flexibility. Put more on that. Just by getting it a little bit wet, it helps, makes it flexible, and it stops it from snapping. It's not quite there yet, but what we can do is we can start moving it into the, before I put it into wheel arch, I'm just going to start trying to form some kind of radius on it slowly by just running it through my fingers and slightly bending every now and then. And you can start seeing it starting to go. That needs to be wet again. Just rubbing it backwards and forwards inside the soaked kitchen towel will get the water penetrated into the balsa wood and allow that to soften enough to be a bit more flexible. So again, I'm just going to continue running it through my fingers because I want it to have a radius on it before I apply it to the arch. Just shuffling it through my hands very gently. And it is, as you can see, it's starting to bend, but it needs a lot more water on it. This is a technique that, oops, that's snapped off, that's not a problem, it's long enough as it is. This is a technique that joiners use to form curves in joinery, and then they form a mould, dampen the timber, and then put it in a press, and it bends perfectly. This is the scaled down version of it, Tony's Workshop style. I can feel this is really flexible now, but this is still a little bit, needs a bit more work, a little bit more water to get into that. I'm going to try and see if I can get this to start bending a bit more. You don't want to put too much pressure on this. Just gently doing it, and turning it, and just getting it to try and follow a bit of a curve, so that when we start putting it into the wheel arch, like so, it's already got a curve on it. So I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue that into position and let it set. And I'm using super glue for this because I need it to go off reasonably quickly, and the super glue will not react with the damp timber. So I'm going to be quite liberal with the super glue, and I'm going to start up the end of the arch here, and then just make sure that's on there, because all this is all going to be rubbed down anyway. Put the lid back on that. And then what I'm trying to do is align the face up, so it's going to be flush on the face. Just pressing that up against the body, but I'm going to just have it over, slightly over the edge, because when I rub it down I want it to be absolutely flush. This will go. Starting to grab it now. And that's it. Just going to hold that down for a while. Needs a little bit more glue in there. Again, don't worry about getting the glue on the face of this, because you're going to be rubbing all this off, sanding it all off. Just needs to be held into position a bit longer. Just hold that there. Again, you don't need to do this. You can just build it as you see it. But I just think that, again, these are all the little details that set your model apart and personalises it for you. So that's just proud at the moment, which is what I want, because obviously when this is all set and filled and rubbed down, I want to rub this timber down, or the balsa timber down, so it's completely flush with the face of that arch. So that is that's what we've achieved there. As I said, when we rub this down, that will become flush with the face of the metal itself. So that just needs a few more moments to set, and then we'll start trimming it and filling it and backfilling it so that it's got some strength in it as well. So obviously, I don't know if you saw that earlier, but when I did this, it's difficult to show you, I probably can see it now, I've backfilled all of this so that this has got some strength, so if I were to pick it up by mistake or forget that this is a bit of timber, I don't damage the timber. So there's enough putty and filler on that to, or putty filler I should say, to keep that nice and strong. So while we're waiting for that to go off, I'll go and get my putty ready, and I'll start filling the gaps in this. So I'll put this to one side, and we start the next part. Right. So this putty is really smart because it's flexible enough and smooth enough to try and work into the gaps here. So I'm just going to put a little bit on there and use the bit that I broke off the balsa wood just to work into the gaps. And again, be fairly liberal with this because you are going to be sanding it all down. Try and work it so it fills the gap. This goes off fairly quickly. There's also some lines here which I'm going to fill, very, very small. Take off all the excess, and I think that's all we need to do. Just having a look on this side, making sure it's, might just put a little bit more on that edge while I've got it out, while I'm working on it. And that takes probably, I would leave that about half an hour, and then we can start sanding it down. Just double checking that I've got all of those lines, and I have. Quite happy with that. Lovely. So we'll leave that to one side, out of the way, and we'll take this back now and have a look and see if that seems to be set nicely. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use my wire cutters. No, I won't actually. Yes, I will. And I'm going to cut, because that needs to be bent around a little bit more around like that. So I'm going to cut that probably there and there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start working this edge to bend it round a bit, as I did on this side here, which you can't see. So perfect. Just got a putty on my fingers, Tony. Quality. Let me just go and wipe that off. Classic. That's 3 days standing around at the MCM and being exhausted on the Monday. But anyway, no harm done. That's that. So what I'll do now is we will start just sort of applying a bit of damp to this part of the edge. It's going to take a bit of time, so I won't film that bit, but I'll do that, and I'll do the other end, and then we'll come back once the glue is completely set, and we'll put some putty and get all this side ready for rubbing down. Right, the glue's all set on that, and I've just managed to get that turned round. So the next thing we're going to do is get the putty again, and we're going to apply a liberal amount of putty on the face of this, and then use my little spreading stick just to come in and fill any gaps there are. Fill the end of that, all of that, and then that will all be rubbed down. Then I'm going to help with the painting, I'm going to fill the face of the balsa wood, because I want that to be smooth, and the balsa wood's quite porous and it will soak the paint up. And now what I'm going to do is like I did previously, I'm going to just build up the back so that I can give it, you know, some reinforcement on the back. So I'm just going to apply the putty as far as I can get into it anyway, and then use a little spreader just to build that up at the back. As I said, really it's just in case I inadvertently pick it up by its wheel arches and then I damage the balsa wood. This is going to give it that sort of structural support that's going to need on the back. Now there's quite a lot here, so that's going to take a long time to cure. Now that will be fine, and while I've got the putty out, and I'll try not to fill my fingers this time, I'm also going to use the opportunity just to fill the line there. I'm just looking on here, there's no line on here like the other one. There was a line across here. It's just where they've joint and TIG welded them together. So that's that will go off in the fullness of time. And now I can rub down or start sanding the other fender. That's pretty much cured now. So we'll move this out of the way and we'll just start working. So I've got a P180 to just take the worst of it off. And then I'm going to put my little electrical sander. I'm going to put a 4000 grit in it, which will give a really smooth finish on the surface of this. This is just taking off the worst of it. I'm going to use this 4000 grit sandpaper I'll use my hand, I think. The old sander does get a bit messy, so that's just going to take a bit of elbow grease. So I'm going to carry on with this and I'll come back to you when this is all rubbed down, ready for painting. Right, so these are all cleaned, prepped, sanded down. Really happy with the finish on that. When you've got sort of larger body parts or sort of large areas to paint like this, flat areas to paint, it's a really good idea to get them sanded down with a very fine sandpaper, wet and dry, or whatever you've got in your workshop. So you get a good key for the primer. At the same time, when I paint these, I'm going to paint the bonnet. Although the bonnet doesn't go on just yet, I might as well get them all painted at the same time, because the parts that go on top of the bonnet, they're going to be in the sort of raw or aluminium or galvanized finish, so they don't need to be painted. So I'll paint the whole thing back to front. So it's really important to get a good finish on this, because this is what's going to show your model off. I'm just waiting for the other parts to dry, and what I will do is I'll probably film this. I've had a few people just ask to just show how I do my painting, so this will be very quick. I'll edit it, or get Ben to edit it, so you don't see all the boring drying parts. Right, so I'm outside. Sorry, face mask. Should go without saying, obviously when you're using can sprays or any kind of spray, you should wear a face mask. I also use these latex gloves. They're brilliant just to protect your hands. So these are all now cleaned, ready for painting. So the first thing I do is I use this edge primer, and then I'm going to put a couple of coats of edge primer on, and then a mid coat of primer. Probably going to film the whole process, and then when it's all cured and I'm happy, we'll then go on and start building up the top coat, which is the RAF blue. So I'm going to start now. Now, I am not a car body sprayer of any sorts, but I've learned with bitter experience, the handy thing is a bit of kitchen towel, so you can keep the nozzle from dripping. Obviously give these a good shake. These have already been pre-shook. You always keep them shook. And then with the I've turned this around on the inside. I'm spraying the inside of the bonnet first. So just a nice, gentle, even strokes. Change your position. And don't put too much paint on. You'll build the coat up. So that's its first coat. Now we're going to do the iconic fenders. Iconic, everybody knows what these look like. From a distance you know straight away what it is. This is the most important, these are the most important sides, so I've got this laid on, but I'm going to do the inside first. And now we're just going to start building up the coats on the outside. Just go around the front of this. Excuse me. And now we can go back and give this another little coat. Because we're only putting on light coats, it dries really quickly. Probably going to give that a little bit longer. So now we're into drying time. I'll come back when it's ready for another coat. Right, so it's dry, ready to go for its second coat. Let's start with these first. Put that down there. Just trying to build up a nice layer of paint without applying too much, because the last thing we want is the paint to start misbehaving. I'm holding the can about 6 inches away from the target surface. I'll put this over here actually. That's the RAF blue. which I'm really looking forward to seeing what this looks like when it's applied to these large panels. Just going to hit the inside of that again. I'm not too bothered about the side that we put all the putty on, because you're not going to see that. I will put some blue on the inside of this as well, because you will see that. Just hitting the edges. So that's the edge primer coat. I'm now going to wait for that to dry, and I'll put its mid primer on that, same colour grey. But I'm going to wait about half an hour or so before I do that, and then we should be ready to paint the blue. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like when it's in its beautiful RAF blue coat. So I'll be back as soon as this is dried. Right, so the mid primer's now on, but now I've got to paint the other side. I'll get the edge primer on the other side. So time to turn the bonnet round. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stand these up, excuse me, like this, so I can hit the other side with the edge primer, and then obviously with the mid primer. So I'm going to go and get that. I've got another tin as well, because I think just about to run out of that one. You don't want to be doing that. Don't want to run out of paint halfway through the job. So same as before, pop that down there. Nice even strokes. Test an area before you paint. This is such an important part of this, because this is the bonnet. Beautiful Land Rover bonnet. Don't want to mess that up. Probably how I'm going to end up painting the blue on these, once I've got the inside with a bit of coat on it. So as before, need to allow that some time to dry, and then I'll be back. Here we go again. Just nice even strokes. Keep the paint as flat and level as you possibly can. I'm using paints that they use in the automobile industry, so they're really good hard wearing paints. And as I said before, inevitably there will be some touching you have to do. There'll be fixings you have to dab paint, but you know, the best part, or the best thing to do, is to paint the parts. I mean, some people take the whole kit out and paint all the parts and then let them set aside. That's probably a good way of doing it as well, but I like to sort of, as I discover how to build my model, because I don't want to go ahead and do things that I may have regretted, so I do it as I go. But definitely try and get these parts painted before you install them onto the chassis, because when it's all installed, I think it's going to be a nightmare, because you have to mask everything up. And I've got some tricky bits to come, because doors and the tailgate and all the rest of it, it's got a framework in it, and there's aluminium parts that need to be exposed. So that's a bit tricky. I haven't even started looking at that yet. But these parts, you know, they're such important parts, because they're such large parts of the body. So that is ready now for its mid primer. and I'll do that, and then we can start getting the blue on. Right, so ready to do the blue. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it round. So I'm going to do the blue on the inside first, and then I'll turn that back round so we can get a really nice coat on it. I'm going to turn these on their side, and then I'll do the inside, and then I'll turn them back up this way to get the blue on them. So we'll start with the bonnet. Just going to do a test area. So let's do, again, we're just going to build up light coats, so it dries quicker, and we can build the coats of paint up. So just turn that on its side, turn that on its side. Now we can do the inside. I'm just going to do the wheel arch bit that we made up earlier, and then I should just be able to turn that up like so. And now we can start applying the first coat of paint to the fenders. Bit too much on there, but no harm done. I don't like to put too much paint on, just like to get a very nice dusting of it. Allow that to dry. That's already got a skin on it, I can see, so I'm going to give another coat of that. I know you don't see this, but you will do when you open it up to get to all the electronics. And this is going to get some abuse, isn't it? Up and down. So the paint inevitably will need to be protected because it will chip. But again, what I tend to do is keep paint over, so I can, I can sort of touch in any areas that have been damaged or scuffed. So we'll give this another light coating. And once I've done this, I'm going to allow this to dry for about half an hour, and then we'll start applying all the finishing top coats. But so far I'm really happy with the finish I seem to be getting. So I'm going to have to wait another half an hour, and then it's going to be ready for its final couple of coats. Right, it's been half an hour. Now I'm going to give it another coat. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to turn the bonnet over, and then this will be the last time I need to paint the underside of this. And then we'll give these their top coats. This first coat. Now we'll leave that to dry. I'll probably give that another coat in a second. Leave that to dry for another 15 minutes. Then I can give it another coat, and then another 15 minutes, and then another coat, and I'll probably put another 15 minutes and then a final coat. just want to make sure there's enough paint on this to protect it if I'm driving around and I bang it into something, which inevitably I probably will do. So I'll probably do all that away from camera, and the next time I see it, we'll have all these painted back on my bench. So I thought while I was waiting for the final coat for the fenders and the bonnet to dry completely, I thought I'd tackle this. Now these little lenses go over the top of this and they just glue in like that, but as you can see, because I've painted them blue underneath, they're quite dark, and obviously when the light goes in there I want it to be quite reflective. I'm not going to glue these in until I've done the lighting, because I may need to get inside and mess around with them. But what I have got, and I bought this is quite expensive. This is real chrome paint, and I bought this to do the mirrors eventually when I get on to do the mirrors. But while I've got this paint, I thought I'd use it to, now this is very dangerous sort of paint, you have to be very careful not to get it on your skin, but I'm not using a lot, so it's highly unlikely I'm going to do that. But you can see it's like mercury almost, stunning. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint the inside of these with this chrome and see how it turns out. And then what we're going to get when the lights are on, should get more reflection for the light. So I'm just going to turn that round in my favour for now. Sorry. Really effective actually, really effective. Don't know if you can see that already. That's going on lovely. And actually, I think when I come to do the mirrors, this will be perfect. Now part of the assembly of this, Armortek are quite clear, and I must admit I kind of decided to go against the instructions for once about assembling this part. I'll explain in a minute, because they tell you to leave this top part off so you can get to the fixings underneath, but I think I can still get to the fixings, so I'm not that concerned. And I wanted it all to be painted rather than trying to install this afterwards. I know I've got this turned away from the camera for now, but you will see very shortly the result. I'll put a lot of this, just use a very small amount. Look at that. Incredible. Incredible. And that's what you'd expect to see as a reflector in a light, wouldn't you? So this paint is so lovely. So that's that side. I've got this paint on the usual large next day kind of anything you want, anytime you want website. And you just do a search for chrome paint and you should find it. I mean, it's the sort of thing that now I've got it, I'll probably end up using it a lot, knowing how effective it is. Sorry I've got this turned away from the camera, just that I do need to see what I'm doing. I mean, this is like almost as expensive as gold, so it only comes in very small pots, but I can see why. I can see why it's expensive. Really effective. I'm sorry, I need to see it myself, so I have got it turned away from the camera for now, so I'm just going to do the same again, sorry. completely run out of time today. The painting has taken a long time, and you can't rush it because it's so important. So I'm going to do this, go and get the other parts that have been painted, and I'll show you how they look, and then I'll do my final piece to camera, and it's going to have to wait until the next session before I install them onto the chassis. And I think it's only right to do it anyway, because the paint still needs to cure. I mean, it's touch dry, but I still think it needs to cure. So that is that. Let's just put the lid back on that hugely expensive pot of liquid chrome, and that is it. That's it there. Gild chrome, gilding enamel, stunning piece of kit. I need to pop that brush into some thinners in a moment, but that's it. And I'm just gonna experiment, just popping that in. Look at that, look at the difference. Sorry, look at that, and what it was to what it is now. So that's going to reflect quite a lot of light, but I won't be gluing those in until I've got the wiring in, because in case I need to get in and mess around with it, I'll put a little grommet in the back of it. So that's brilliant. I'm really pleased with that, and I'm really looking forward to doing the mirrors when I get to that point sometime down the road. So I'll go and get the other parts now, and I'll come back to camera. Well, that's it for today's session. I've just it's caught up with me again. So the painting took a long time, but you have to take your time with this part. You don't want to rush this, because you want to get the finish as best as you possibly can. So in the next session, I will get the body parts onto the chassis, I promise you. But I'm really pleased with the finish, and I think I've got enough paint on these parts now to not to be too concerned about operating them. Really pleased with the fenders, these iconic Series 1, or the Land Rover Series fenders. And I'm chuffed to bits also with the doing the wheel arches. I think they've come out really well, and I'm super chuffed about the chrome painting technique for the headlights. I think that's going to really make a difference when the lenses are on. And of course, I've gone ahead and I've done the radiator in the black, and this has all just got to be mounted on here. Now, just a note, Armortek do say that this part here should be left off until the radiator is bolted to the chassis. I've decided not to do that. I've decided to go ahead and install it, because I wanted to get all this part of the painting and not have to worry about touching in fixings on this particular part, because they're quite delicate. So I hope I don't live to regret that. Time will tell. So I'll definitely get in the next session. We'll definitely get these parts onto the main chassis, and we'll get cracking. And I think it's going to really start to take shape then. The only thing is, obviously I put the bulkhead on today. The only thing is, I'm going to leave this bar off, which goes through these fixings here, or these cleats here, because it's quite soft aluminium, and there's still got to be a lot of handling of this. What I don't want to do is glue this into position and then bend it inadvertently, and then have to try and straighten out, and it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So I'm just thinking I'm going to leave that right to the very end, and just before I finish it, I can put it in, because it doesn't have to be painted. I'm leaving that in the raw metal. I'm going to sign off by saying a massive thank you to all of you. The success of this channel is down to you and the support you give me. And I'm humbled every time I upload a video. The comments I get and the amount of thumbs up and all the positivity around it is just humbling. And I'm speechless almost. As you know, I've lost my voice, and apologies for that as well today. But I'm speechless, and it's I get quite emotional about it, because I never set out to do this. I never expected it to be as successful as it currently is. So please keep supporting me. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you've just joined, please subscribe, because we have a long way to go with this Series 1 Land Rover. I know it's not a tank, and I'm going to say that it's a smaller kit than all of the tanks, but no less complicated. There's a lot of complex parts of this. All have to be very carefully thought out, carefully put together, carefully planned, so you don't make mistakes. So smaller kit, but equally as challenging, and an amazing kit. And if you're in a position and you're thinking about, or you're on the fence about considering one of these, I would do it. You won't regret it. It's a super kit. And as I said earlier, what I love about this, it's kind of gives you more opportunities to to put yourself into it and put your own stamp on it. So I'll sign off by saying thank you for joining me today. Thanks again for all of your support. I'm Tony. I love building these kits, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session.